Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That's Jack somewhere over there, and this is Connor, and this is the Footy Five. Jack is on location at Indiana University, getting ready to start his freshman year.
Very exciting.
We're all counting on you.
Hey, we all are.
All right, we've got to review our last week predictions. Starting out with City and Spurs, it did end as a draw, which I will gleefully say I got right.
And I was right for about 35 seconds.
The only thing that saved me from being right is the fact that VAR happened.
Yeah, it was a really contentious point. I mean, the clear and obvious statement in the rules of VAR have given a lot of people really a lot of confusion because for offsides that doesn't apply, and for this new handball rule where if it hits an arm, even if it's completely unintentional and it leads to a goal, it's ruled out. I personally like that rule.
For the offensive player.
For the offensive player, of course. I think I like that because it rules out any sort of guesswork. It hits the hand, it can't be a goal. If it hits the hand unintentionally somewhere
else. But everybody's blaming VAR. It's not VAR problem.
It's a
problem with the rule now that nobody likes.
Exactly, yeah. And it was a really good match. I think City should have gotten the win, but in the end, they had 2 lawful goals. Spurs had 2 lawful goals. That means that there was an equal share of the points. So I think at the end of the day, they can't have too many complaints.
Yeah, no, that's the only thing that made this difference in our. It's hilarious that you had it 3-2, I had it 2-2, and VAR is the difference not only in the match but in us being right or wrong, which is crazy.
Exactly.
And Aguero here summing up how everybody felt about that game. Nobody's like, wait, what just happened? We're watching it as it's happening. We're like, wait, what the hell just happened? As are these two. Pochettino and Pep are both also. I'm curious what this conversation looked like.
Especially because only a few months ago, they had a similar controversy. Raheem Sterling scored a goal that should have sent City into the final. And in the end, it was ruled out, and that was another crazy event there. Or that was the quarterfinals where the City were eliminated, not the semifinals. But that was another case where it was razor thin margin between these sides, and in the end, VAR has been on the side of Spurs twice in a row.
Well, last time Llorente got caught with the handball against Liverpool in the final.
And by rule, the goal that City or Spurs scored to give them the eventual win in that quarterfinal leg, that would have been ruled out under the handball rule, not under the VAR rule. The handball rule would have said it hit his arm, even though it's against his body and unintentional, nothing he can do about it because it was hit an arm and went in. But that rule is not in place. It came into effect in June. So City, you can call them unfortunate, but by the letter of the law, it was correct.
Yeah, it's just terrible. Like as you see here with VAR, Pep's commentary of VAR was taking a coffee in that moment, and then you have Pochettino saying, well, I was a little critical, but now you have to accept it because it worked for us.
Exactly. And he also said in that quote, or later on, he said it's not going to help him at other times, but it will help him sometimes. And that's
it evens out. The plan is it just evens out over the course of the season.
100%.
But then you have Klopp clearly at the control board for VAR, at least according to Mr. Brian D. Apple. Pretty funny. But nobody happier for this result probably than somebody like Liverpool or United.
100%.
But aside from all the controversy, De Bruyne was unbelievable.
Phenomenal. I mean, he showcased exactly why he's one of the premier midfielders in the world. I mean, those 2 assists he had were just disgusting.
He should have had another one.
Exactly, yeah. He is, on his day, the best midfielder in the world. Undoubted best.
We'll talk about Pogba a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I put Pogba in there. I'm not sure who's better.
Exactly.
They're different roles, different skills, but both unbelievable talents for their side. Lucas Moura, instant impact, super sub, 19 seconds coming on, heads in from the corner for the equalizer. Just nuts that kind of thing.
And he's not a tall dude, but he came in there and he jumped and he went in there to win the header, and he did.
Well, City wasn't ready. They didn't know how to mark him.
They did not.
He comes into the side, and they just left him completely alone.
Exactly. And I wouldn't peg him as the favorite to win a header in the 6-yard box to score a goal, but he did ultimately, which is kind of crazy.
He got the job done. Southampton, Liverpool, the homecoming of sorts, as we talked about. Scoreline's wrong, but result correct. Liverpool taking this one 2-1, only after Adrian gifts a goal to. Meanwhile, Lonergan was a little bit nervous going into that match. He's like, oh my God, I have to play. I haven't ever played in the Premier League. Age 35, didn't have to play, but I think he's still looking like this, not knowing if Adrian's going to be fit or if he's going to be capable.
Mm-hmm. I think that the error was Disappointed. It was It was pretty much unforced because Ings did the standard striker pressure, trying to make something out of nothing, and he could have spread it out right for Alexander-Arnold. In the end, he got caught in his own feet, and poor play by him.
It was
but
the
he's gonna learn
second time he did it in the match.
Yeah, it was. It was. He'll learn from it. Even though he's a
Well, I
more
mean, he
experienced
joins
player,
the
he will learn.
exactly. Well, he joins Karius with a terrible giveaway. Last season against Everton, Allison had a terrible giveaway when he wandered way out to the right of the 18-yard box, and Everton came back and scored on him. So Klopp's quote here: "We gave them a proper boost by that nice pass by Adrian. He has ticked that box now."
Exactly.
So
Yeah. He's got that under
hopefully
his belt.
for Liverpool supporters, won't have to worry about that again. All right, Wolves and United ended in a 1-1 draw at the Molineux. We both had this down as 2-1
And
to
again,
United.
the finest of margins. Our predictions were pretty close. I was pretty close on the City Spurs game, and in this game, if Pogba made his penalty, we would both have been right with 2-1, which would have been kind of remarkable, actually.
And I think Pog was taking an unnecessary beating. Solskjaer is really probably the one who needs to take a beating. We'll talk about that as we go. But, you know, the point here that you grabbed this Jonathan Walters quote, you know, he didn't try to miss. Patricio made a great save. He guessed correctly, and Pogba had a lot of power on it. Probably could have put it in the corner a little bit more. But, again, good penalty, good save.
Ultimately, he got fouled, so he decided to take it. I think in that moment, as a player, I can imagine the emotions were probably going through him a lot more than Rashford. And he said, there is no designated penalty taker. So in his head, he probably just said, I feel like I won this. I'm going to go finish off the play that I started. And that ultimately is why he took it, and I think he would take it every other time. He's that kind of footballer. He has an elite mentality. I think that's not something to, even though there's bad stats against him, I don't think it's something to really harsh on against him.
I think everybody that is outspoken is a former player, and they're all like, the striker takes the penalties, period, full stop, that's how it goes, right? Which you can argue that yes or no, but there are very few midfielders that do what Pogba does. If you watch what he did to get that penalty in the first place, that's not a midfielder's feet, like the way he did that. Exactly. It was crazy. He plays like a striker. He has missed 4 of the past 11, which is more than anybody in the Premier League in the last 2 seasons. Rashford hasn't missed any, but he's only taken 4, I think. So it's not necessarily fair, but it is Solskjaer's issue. He says, I got 2 designated penalty takers, and they figure out who feels the best. And that's what I think people were really getting bent out of shape about.
I think that's not a terrible logic to have. Who's more confident? Who is more passionate about taking this specific penalty? Having multiple good penalty takers is never a bad thing to have.
No, but I think you've got to be a little bit, and this is down to Solskjaer's player empowerment philosophy, right? That's what he wants to do. He wants to give the players the decision-making authority or the ability to feel like they can influence the match, which is great. But I think he's going to have to clean this up because I don't think he can keep this. Whether it's Pogba or whether it's Rashford, I think he's going to have to go down to 1 at some point.
I think that's entirely possible, but I'm not as concerned as some people are about the extremities of this because ultimately a game shouldn't come down to a penalty being scored or not scored. I think it should be decided far in advance of that, and United in the end deserved a 1-1 draw.
True. Neves, insane. He was left alone. The entire United defense collapsed into the box, and he was left alone and just put that thing in the upper right corner. It was absolutely gorgeous. Unbelievable.
It was great. And Wolves actually have a good history against Manchester United. I mean, the stat that's about to show is that they've come from behind in 3 consecutive matches to avoid a defeat. That's no easy task. Even though United aren't the dominant force of old, they're still a big side. And being able to do that is still a big task for a side who's only a year into the Premier League. So they're just showcasing that they are well above their usual standard that you have for recently promoted teams.
Yeah, no, they're really good. A lot of that comes down to Nuno Espirito Santo, who we'll talk about in our preview episode this coming weekend. But just a team that plays really, really well together and loves playing with one another.
Exactly.
Like a lot of it is culture, and you can have all the talent in the world, which we've seen. A lot of clubs buy a lot of players, but he's able to get them to mesh and get that culture to work. Let's touch on Richarlison. We talked about him in the lead-up. Obviously, he's playing against his former team. But he clearly gets that club, that club being Everton. You know, this quote about, walking out to Z cars and the siren and just how it makes him feel. Yeah. He didn't play all that well, but he's clearly comfortable and understands the the culture of that club again.
Yeah, and that's a big thing for Everton to have is you can't, like you sign Moise Keane, you sign Iwobi from Everton. These are good guys, but if they don't understand the fabric of the club, you're always going to struggle pushing into that top echelon where the guys are willing to fight for that jersey. He's a guy who you look at him and you think he's got a lot of passion when he goes out in that field. He's got a lot of talent as well. Hasn't displayed it as much in the first 2 games this year as he probably would have liked to, but I'm not at all pessimistic on his future because Everton have scored just 1 goal this year. They've conceded 0. So it's not been a dominant start from them, but it's also not been a bad one either.
4 points from 2, not bad.
It's not bad at all.
Lampard.
On the other end.
Yeah, on the other hand. Yeah, sorry. Still working on the kinks on this remote deal. It's too soon to determine whether it's too soon, right? We talked about this in the preview, but he did get a hero's welcome back at Stamford Bridge. You could see all the pre-match festivities around welcoming back him as a legend, Super Frank, all that stuff. Can't get the result, 1-1 draw.
And I think that helps things, ultimately. I think that him having the support of the fans and the love of the fans will help in these trying times. They haven't won in 3 matches this season, and it's been tough for them to watch. They've only got 1 point out of their first 2 matches in the Premier League and failed to win the Super Cup on penalties, especially, which is even tougher because you went toe-to-toe with Liverpool, a dominant side, the European champions, and you weren't able to come out on top on penalties. And so I think that it's moments like these where you need the support of the fans to kind of push through that rut and break out. I think they have a chance to do that, but it's really going to be a matter of fine margins.
Agreed. BR Football showing what Lampard may or may not look like after a season managing Chelsea. He's got a little bit of Jose Mourinho in him.
He does have a little bit. Hopefully a bit of the winning success that Jose Mourinho had.
Exactly. Well. Yeah, not grumpy Mourinho, successful Mourinho. So, again, here's the table. Too early for this to probably be relevant, but we do have an interesting-looking matchup heading into this next weekend, Liverpool and Arsenal at Anfield, in addition to a couple others that we'll cover in a preview match coming up here in a day or two. So for Jack at IU, this has been Conrad, and this is the Footy Five. Take care now. Have a good night.